Runoff elections see the lowest voter turnout of any election, which means that your vote can literally make the difference between Stephanie Woodward or John Browning becoming our next justice on the county court at law number 2. The key to winning this race is for each candidate to motivate Republicans to get out and vote. Both Stephanie Woodward and John Browning desperately want to earn your vote, which is why they are here today, so that you could meet them and better understand who they are and why you should choose them when you go to vote. Now, through the magic of video, it will appear as though both candidates are here together with me in studio. However, each candidate came in separately to sit down with me and answer the same set of questions that I provided to them in advance. I placed no time constraints on the answers from either candidate. However, for the sake of time, I did not include all of the questions that I asked, specifically because their answers were almost identical. And in a few cases, I did have to edit down a few of their answers to ensure that both candidates had generally the same amount of time as the other. And I will say that anything I edited out did not alter their answers. While these candidates have very different presentation styles, the one thing anyone who watches this will come away with is how truly well-versed in the law they are and how strongly they hold to the conviction of their beliefs. Now, I want to begin by introducing both candidates, and I'll start with Stephanie Woodward. Stephanie has been practicing law for 25 years as both a prosecutor and private attorney. She currently has a successful law practice here in Rockwall with business partner Susan Fitchell. Is it Fitchell?
It's Fichtel.
Fichtel, thank you very much. Susan Fichtel. They handle all levels of misdemeanor and felony cases, as well as other types of cases. She received her undergraduate degree from Austin College in Sherman and her law degree from Texas Wesleyan School of Law. Now, is that not Texas A&M now?
Yes, it is.
All right.
Well, I'm old, and so it was Texas Wesleyan when I was
So she's,
there.
hey, we're going to adopt you anyway, okay? So that's good bull. All right. After law school, Stephanie began her career at the Dallas County District Attorney's Office. She gained a tremendous amount of legal experience there and moved up the ranks quickly. During that time, she had numerous jury trials, which included DWIs, thefts, family violence, murder, aggravated kidnapping, aggravated robbery, and high-level drug offenses. The position she was most proud of was being assigned to the Child Abuse Division. Under Dallas District Attorney Bill Hill, Stephanie was promoted to Deputy Chief of the Misdemeanor Division, in which she supervised and trained over 30 trial attorneys. Her job duties also included being a faculty advisor and instructor for the Texas District and County Attorney Association. In addition to 7 years as a prosecutor in Dallas, in 2005, Stephanie joined the Rockwall County District Attorney's Office. She prosecuted all levels of misdemeanor and felony cases, including child abuse cases. During Stephanie's 25-year career as a prosecutor and private attorney, she has handled over 150 jury trials. So that's the background from the professional end. Tell us a little bit about your personal life. Where are you from and about your family?
I grew up in Lake Highlands. I graduated from Lake Highlands High School in 1984, and then I went on to Austin College. I got a psychology degree with a minor in communications. I got married while I was in college, and I had my oldest son my senior year of college. After having him, I actually continued to run track at Austin College, and I was the conference champ in the 800 and the 1500. He was about 3 months old when I started back to run.
Wow.
I took about a year and a half off after I graduated from Austin College, and I had my little girl. And so when I started law school, I had a 2-year-old and a 6-month-old. I stayed home with them during the day, and I went to law school at night. My 3rd year of law school, I got the awesome opportunity to intern for John Vance at the Dallas DA's office.
Wow.
And I got to work under Pat Curlin and Hugh Lucas. Pat Curlin happens to now work for Kenda Culpepper here in Rockwall, and I got to work on a capital murder with them as an intern. And I knew it was where I wanted to be.
Wow.
I am married. My husband is Chris Woodward. He put himself through undergraduate school. He put himself through law school while working as a Dallas police officer. He worked full-time as an officer and went to school and finished 6 months early, paying for everything himself. We actually met, he's my second husband.
Okay.
We met at the DA's office when I worked in Dallas. I was his supervisor briefly. We did not date when I was his supervisor.
Okay.
We have 3 wonderful children. Our son Dylan, who is 18 and just graduated from Heath High School, and he is the one that is now going to A&M. In addition to joining the Corps.
Wow, that is awesome.
We couldn't be any more over the moon.
I imagine so.
About him. And then we have twin 11-year-olds, 2 boys, Kate and Colton, and they go to Linda Lyons, and they play football, lacrosse, basketball, and they are now trying wrestling out.
Fantastic. About John Browning, he is a partner in the Plano office of the nationally recognized law firm of Spencer Fain, where he handles a wide variety of litigation in state and federal courts throughout Texas. John received his undergraduate degrees with honors from Rutgers, where he was a National Merit Scholar and Phi Beta Kappa. Now, unfortunately, he received his law degree from the University of Texas, but I'm going to forgive you for that, just to let you know. But it is the School of Law, so it's kind of a little different. In several years has served as a municipal judge for the city of Lavon. He has also held or currently holds leadership positions in state and national bar associations, and in 2015 was appointed by the Supreme Court of Texas to the Professional Ethics Committee, which writes the ethics opinion that governs Texas lawyers. Additionally, Judge Browning is the author of 4 books and hundreds of legal articles that have been cited as authority by state and federal courts throughout Texas and the U.S. A lifelong Republican and longtime Republican grassroots volunteer, John Browning has served as legal counsel to the Rockwall County Republican Party and as a member of its executive committee. Well, John, tell us about your family.
Well, Robert, I'm one of those folks who sadly cannot put the native Texan bumper sticker on my car. I wasn't born in Texas. I got here as soon as I could.
There you go. That's
and
good.
As you mentioned, while my law degree is from UT, I have the best of both worlds. UT gave me my degree, but I get to teach at Texas A&M's law school.
Nice.
I'm also adjunct faculty at SMU's and Texas Tech Law School. So
wonderful.
I have most of the old Southwest Conference pretty much represented.
You do.
But I was born and raised back east, one of 6 kids to a working class Irish Catholic family. My mom was a stay-at-home mom. My dad, a World War II veteran, went to Rutgers College of Pharmacy on the GI Bill, became the first one in his family to get a college degree. I was the first of their 6 kids to get a 4-year degree and the only one to get a graduate or professional degree. Up until I went to college, I was a survivor, if you will, of Catholic schools all my life. I met my wife, my college sweetheart, at Rutgers, and turns out she was a Dallas Cowboys fan her whole life. And so when I had offers to, coming out of law school, to go with firms in either Houston or Dallas, she said, well, there's no choice. We're going to Dallas.
Awesome.
And that's where we went. That's my wife, Lisa. We've been married come August for 31 years.
Wonderful.
So, and the branch of the family took a little bit of a fork to Arizona. That's where basically my adopted son, Patrick, lives with his wife and our 2 grandsons, age 5 and 2. So, in fact, on the way over here, I was watching their swimming lessons. So they've gotten to be like little fish.
Wonderful. Well, I hope that by the end of today's show, people will get a greater sense of who you are, your judicial temperament, and what kind of judge you would be behind the bench, which is why my first question hits to the very heart of the point, which is that is to share your judicial philosophy. And John, I'm going to start with you.
Well, I learned from the very best. I was fortunate to know and be friends with and learn a great deal from the late Justice Antonin Scalia. So I have to say that my judicial philosophy was nurtured and strengthened by, the person who inspired it. My judicial philosophy, in a nutshell, is that of being an originalist, a textualist, looking at the law as it was written and applying it, not as I might want it to be or someone else might want it to be, because that can certainly change. But the way I view it, a judge is elected to be a judge. No one elected that person to be a legislator. If you want to be that, run for the legislature.
Okay. Stephanie?
I am a constitutional conservative. I do believe that judges should follow the law as it is written. A judge's role is to call balls and strikes. It is not to legislate from the bench and create new law. It's kind of simple as that for me.
Well, what are the major influences in your life and why?
My parents, hands down. Neither one of my parents got to go to college. They didn't come from money, and in fact, they both came from not very good backgrounds. Both of them had alcoholism in their families. My dad joined the Navy at 17, got his GED in the Navy, got out, became a construction worker, and then became a police officer, which has a lot to do with how I feel about law enforcement. He is my biggest cheerleader, but he's also my greatest critic. He taught me, don't let anybody tell you you can't do something because you're a girl or because you're small. You may have to work harder. You may have to run faster, climb higher. But I never felt like I couldn't do something because of who I was. I just needed to work hard at it. He taught me to work hard at things, but to do it with character. If you don't do it with character, it doesn't matter. Whenever I doubt myself, the voice I hear in the back of my head is my dad's. And he's saying, basically, buck up, Buttercup, you can do this. And my mom. My mom got married at 19, had me at 20. She didn't get to go to college. She is probably the smartest and the most beautiful woman that I know, both inside and out. She started out as a bank teller in a bank, worked her way up to director of marketing at that bank, and then became a small business owner. And she struggled through that small business, but she made it successful. She, for me, is a role model. She's my sounding board. I can go to my mom, and she doesn't tell me what I want to hear. She doesn't give me the answer to the question either. She gives me pros, she gives me cons, and gives me the tools to try to come up with the right answer. She's amazing. Both my parents are.
Wow. Sounds awesome. John?
Well, I would have to say, first and foremost, my Christian faith. Having been, practicing Catholic my whole life, product of Catholic education, I just can't envision, my view of the world not being one, seeing it as, a daily reflection of Christ's love. Besides my faith, besides, my upbringing, the values that my parents instilled in me, the inspiration that they were, after, that, and my father, I could see in him, the importance of servant leadership. So my parents were great influences, and I'd not only be remiss, I'd be in trouble at home if I didn't say my wife is a great influence. She is certainly someone who keeps me grounded, helps me keep things in perspective, and lastly, I have benefited a great deal from some outstanding mentors in my life. Certainly, chief among them, Justice Scalia.
Amazing man.
And our former Chief Justice of the Dallas Court of Appeals and a Rockwall County resident, Carolyn Wright. Really, she was my inspiration for embarking upon, judicial service.
So, John, what do you perceive as the greatest obstacles to justice and why?
Well, I see on an all too frequent basis, probably the greatest obstacle, and that is people, actors in the judicial system, the justice system, not faithfully and fully abiding by their role in the justice system. We talked just a moment ago about, judges. They are supposed to apply the law as it was written, not as, they want it to be, not as their whim of that day happens to be. Prosecutors take an oath to see to it that justice is done. And sometimes, that doesn't always mean blindly prosecuting a case just because you can, if the evidence and the facts and the law are not lining up on your side. You're not supposed to just, blindly, charge in there. If there is something that, exonerates or exculpates, the defendant, well, they have a duty, an ethical duty, to bring that to the court's attention. And sadly, that's one reason why we have had an issue in Texas and elsewhere with these drives for exonerations because of maybe mistakes that were made by someone not really abiding by what their role is. And I see it in the civil system all the time, where plaintiffs' attorneys, members of the plaintiffs' bar, perhaps blinded by dollar signs, are simply pressing forward with cases that are clearly not meritorious, that are baseless, just because they're kind of rolling the dice and betting that a business owner or company will agree to pay a settlement rather than incur defense costs and run the risk of a potentially hostile jury. And it's a shame, because who does it hurt when a business pays a settlement or their insurance carrier pays a settlement? It hurts you and me. Those costs are passed on. An insurance carrier, they're going to pass that on. You're going to pay higher insurance rates.
Very good. Stephanie, what do you think about that?
First of all, I really believe we have the greatest justice system in the world. It is not perfect, but I do think that most of the time the right outcome does happen. I really believe that judges and lawyers, most of them, there's always bad apples, that they do want to do the right thing and they do their job. Okay. Having said that, probably one of the biggest obstacles to justice is money. If you are arrested and you have the money to bond out, it is easier to prepare a defense when you are out of jail versus when you're in jail. If you have money, you can not only hire the best attorney, you can hire the best attorneys. You can have a team. If you have money, you can hire the greatest experts, whether they're from Texas or from other states, to help in your defense. There are wonderful court-appointed attorneys, and especially in Rockwall. I can't talk about everywhere, but Rockwall has a really good set of court-appointed attorneys. But I do think that probably the biggest obstacle still is money.
Well, we certainly have the greatest justice system in the world, but as you say, justice ain't cheap. And in light of that, since this is a misdemeanor court, I thought it was fair to ask both of you if you believe there is such a thing as a victimless crime, and if so, what offenses would you place in this category? And Stephanie, I'm going to start with you.
I don't think there's victimless crimes. I mean, obviously, there's some crimes that are obvious victims, a murder case, a child abuse case, a robbery case. But society is a victim to crime. So let's take a drug case. Not even a drug dealer, drug possession. That person did buy from a drug dealer. Drug dealers tend to have weapons in their homes. They tend to ruin the neighborhoods that are surrounding those drug houses. You have parents that care for that child that uses drugs. You have a court system that has to deal with it. That's taxpayer money. So all the way around, there is a victim, even to a possession of drug offense.
John, what do you think of that?
Well, I have a really hard time, and it may just be my Christian values, but I have a hard time wrapping my head around the concept of a so-called victimless crime. I hear so-called justice reformers tossing out that term, and I've yet to hear a good explanation. And when I do hear certain examples being given, they're ones that I immediately cannot agree with. So,
what are some of those examples?
Drug use. Putting aside whether or not this drug is a gateway to more serious drugs or, what have you. The fact of the matter is that drug use and drug addiction, they call that victimless, but when you look at the crime that is committed by individuals to feed a drug habit, you can hardly call that a victimless crime. Prostitution with its degradation and exploitation of women and the human trafficking, that is a victimless crime. I simply don't buy it. So I really don't buy into this concept of so-called victimless crime.
Wow, great points from both of you. Thank you. What is your vision for the future of the judicial system, and what changes would you advocate for and why? And John, I'm going to let you lead this one out.
Well, I don't know how much control I'm ever going to get, to see this vision of theirs. But I think, like a lot of folks, my vision for the future of the judicial system is one where there is a greater embrace of technology. Now, one of the good things to come out of this pandemic, to the extent that you can say there's been some silver lining, is that it has forced courts to undertake a greater adoption of technology and to realize, hey, we can't afford to ignore this. Not only is this helping us get by and be functional to the greatest extent that we can, but it's also something that may streamline things and improve things in the future. So I've seen other courts, adopt things like e-filing, like promoting greater access for parties, lawyers, to gain access to online court records, where previously you had to have a subscription and, or it wasn't even online, in many parts of Texas. So this embrace of technology is something I'd like to see for the future. Being able to better serve the folks that courts are supposed to serve. I mean, it is a service.
Stephanie, how would you answer that?
We have Kendi Culpepper, when she came in, she created or helped create Veterans Court, and it is an amazing program.
When you say veterans, what do you mean veterans? Like
veterans, people that have been in the military that get out.
Military veterans, okay.
Military veterans.
Okay.
They actually have a program now in Rockwall, and it's run by Judge Roach. There's drug treatment. There's mental health if you have PTSD. There's expectations of you. If you don't live up to them, there's consequences. Sometimes it's a weekend in jail. Sometimes, if it's bad enough, you get kicked out of the program and you have to go back through the criminal justice system. But the beauty of it is, if you make it through this tough program, they dismiss the case. Now, we're talking about nonviolent lower levels, not sexual assault or things like that. But it gives an opportunity for these veterans who have given back to our community and our country an opportunity to not only turn their lives around, but get off the drugs and the alcohol. If they have anger issues, deal with them. If there's it's an amazing, amazing program. I'd like to see if we could do something like that out here for young people, first-time offenders, nonviolent offenses. But if we could catch them early on versus them down the road when they become robbers, drug dealers, things like that, we might change their course. And in that, because I know it costs money, and money's an issue, we may save the taxpayers money on the back end.
In the long run.
In the long run.
Because they're not going to be in prison, state prison. We're not going to be. They're going to be contributing members of society.
But again, it has to have strict criteria. You don't just let every young person in the program.
Sure. That brings up a good point, because both of you have had to deal with online courts because of the COVID situation. So, Stephanie, let me ask you, how has virtual courtroom procedures that you're having to go through now, for instance, you can't do jury trials, how is that impacting justice right now?
I think for pleas, for hearings, I don't think it has had a negative impact. Mm-hmm. I think jury trials, and I know we're not having them yet, but there's no way that we can do virtual jury trials. Jury selection. I've picked over 150 juries. Part of jury selection is talking to people, but it's also body language. It's me talking to you, and you may be shaking your head like you are right now as I'm talking, But someone over there and out of the corner of my eye, I can see them going like this. I don't see that if it's on a little screen. But that's part of my job picking a jury, to notice that person's reaction. In a jury trial, jurors, you give them the evidence. They touch it, they feel it, they sense it. That's all part of them trying to decide what the right thing is to do. A picture doesn't do it. They need to be part of it. They need to see expressions, body language, and actually really feel the evidence. And I don't think you can do that virtually.
Well, John, so how has the experience of virtual court proceedings impacted the process of justice in your eyes?
Well, it is challenging, to say the least. Now, I can't even count how many Zoom hearings, including one earlier today. I've had a Zoom bench trial. The Texas Supreme Court has suspended all jury trials. In fact, just yesterday they entered an order that extended that deadline. It's not going to be until at least September 1 before they even consider allowing a jury trial. Wow. I, of course, believe that the right to a trial before a jury of one's peers is sacrosanct in the Constitution. So that is certainly problematic. We're dealing with things as best we can. But it is frustrating. Sometimes there's some slip-ups. One judge in Brazil didn't realize the hearing had started and was there shirtless sipping a cup of coffee. He had to be reminded by his fellow judges that, hey, you're on candid camera, right? Wow. I'm probably dating myself with the candid camera reference. But while it can be frustrating at times, it's important that we continue to do everything we can to keep things going.
Very good. Stephanie, how would you respond to that?
Life's funny. COVID's a horrible thing that has come. But because of it, we've had to make some changes in court. And they're changes that I think are going to make the court better. Prior to COVID, we would do pleas. If someone decided they wanted to come in and plead guilty, there's plea papers, lots of paperwork that has to be done before you go in front of the judge. We normally would wait till the morning of. You'd show up and you're grabbing papers and the prosecutor's grabbing the paperwork and we're trying to put it together. Then we hand it to a clerk and she's got to fill out all this stuff. And it takes half the morning to get the paperwork done before you ever get in front of the judge. So that's a lot of time that's going by. Because of COVID, we had to find a better system. So they've started emailing us the plea paperwork. The prosecutor emails it to me a day or two before. I review it through DocuSign. I sign everything. It then goes back to the prosecutor, who then reviews it. It goes to the clerk's office. They go ahead and do all the paperwork that they need to do so that on the day of the plea, when we get there, it gets put in front of the judge and boom, we're done. All corrections have been made in advance, and so it has actually sped things up, which means the court can get more done. And I think we absolutely need to keep doing it. It's the best thing that's happened.
John, the next question's for you. What have you observed to be the most effective methods for improving court procedures and efficiency? And are there others that you would suggest?
Well, I can tell you, I'm a big believer in the if it ain't broke, don't fix it approach. And having practiced in our 3 current courts in Rockwall County, I have seen some great cost-saving and efficient procedures. For example, our judges, Judge Hall, Judge Rako, Judge Williams, have adopted a series of standing orders in certain types of cases. So one of the standing orders says, look, before we get all the way to the finish line, you're going to have this completed and send us proof of completion so that that's in your file so that doesn't delay things more. Having uncontested proceedings, like uncontested probate or guardianship, scheduled for a certain time and certain day of the week to get that done in order to improve efficiency. That's something that these courts are already doing, and which, if I'm given the chance, I would certainly continue, because I do believe if it's working, there's no reason to change that.
Stephanie, how would you answer that?
I think it's real simple. Be efficient. Get in there, be at work on time. When you get there, get on the bench. If you've got a docket, run your docket. Move the cases, because if you're moving the cases, 1, justice is being done, but 2, you're saving the taxpayers money by moving those cases. I mean, it really is about efficiency.
Simple as that, huh? Well, thank you both for coming in and answering these questions. And I hope that this has been enlightening for those of you watching who must now decide between two outstanding candidates and which one is going to earn your vote. So before we go, I want to give each of them the opportunity to speak directly to you, the voter. And John, you got the first question. So Stephanie Woodward, I'm going to give you the opportunity to be first and speak to your voters.
I have been waiting for the right opportunity, for the right court to come along, the right opportunity to fit my expertise, as well as the right time in my family's life. This county court at law is it. I have been doing this for 25 years. I handle the very kind of cases that this court will handle, whether it's criminal, juvenile, mental health cases, as well as some of the other civil stuff. I'm not doing this as a stepping stone. I'm not looking to get this position to move up somewhere else. This is how I would like to potentially end my career. And I would be honored to be your next judge.
John Browning, your closing remarks.
Well, thank you, Robert. This election started out with 5 primary candidates, all fine lawyers. It's now down to myself and my opponent. I happen to have more years of experience. I have, without taking anything away from my opponent, I have a broader range of experience, one that encompasses not only virtually every type of case that could come before this court, involving civil cases, personal injury suit that's brought, employment disputes, business disputes against a company or a business, mental health and guardianship proceedings, probate proceedings, family law cases, as well as on the criminal side, misdemeanors. So Rockwall County, for this new county court of law, needs a judge who's going to have that civil experience as well as the criminal experience that I have. I mean, I handle criminal cases. I publish articles on criminal law and evidence. I teach criminal court judges as a faculty member for the Texas Center for the Judiciary. I handle, as a judge, something my opponent can't say. For the past several years, I have heard and adjudicated criminal misdemeanors. And that's all that this court is going to hear. No felony cases are going to be heard by this court. That's for the district courts here in Rockwall to handle. So that's the sort of thing I already have in my wheelhouse. So the greater number of years of experience, the greater breadth of experience, and the only candidate in the race with judicial experience makes me the better candidate. In addition, I have been a leader in the legal profession. I have won the highest honors in our profession for my practice ability, for my legal abilities. Peer review ratings all place me at the top of my profession. In addition, I have been given the top awards from the State Bar of Texas for legal ethics, legal writing, public service, and commitment to legal education because of educating judges and lawyers as I've done for years. This spirit of giving back is really what drives me to seek the opportunity to be your new county court of law judge. So if you want a judge you can be proud of and Rockwall County can be proud of, please vote for John Browning for judge of Rockwall County Court of Law number 2.
Well, I want to thank both of you for being here and giving me your time and the opportunity to ask some tough questions and for your willingness to answer those questions. Now, if you've watched my show for any amount of time, you know that I have no problem making public endorsements for individuals who uphold conservative values that makes America great, which is why I can say with integrity that I wholeheartedly endorse both of these candidates. If you take anything away from this show, I hope that it's the peace of mind in knowing that regardless who wins the race, justice will truly be found in the county court at law number 2. If you care about what happens in Rockwall from a conservative point of view, then don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell so that you will know whenever I